And I'm going to hit Instagram here and go live. Instagram messed up again. Oh well, that's life. Instagram's not going to get this goodness.
Oh
Well,
wow.
welcome to the 7 o'clock talk. And I'm Dr. Trevor Miller. This is Nurse Jessica. And if you don't know us, we run Integrated Health of Indiana. And sorry for the noise if it's loud. We are using Starbucks's internet because ours is not good. So, with that all being said, we have Dr. Milton Bastidas with us, Dr. B, and he is the lead researcher, doctor, guru for transformation enzymes. And I did not do you justice, but how did you get into this space?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me. It's an honor to be here, Dr. Miller and Mrs. Jessica. Um, so, to the way I got into space, well, I'm a chiropractor first and foremost, and through my chiropractic journey, I began seeing a lot of patients that came to me with more than just neck pain, low back pain, a lot of systemic issues. And there comes a time where you see that you help a lot of people, but there's a good portion that are still dealing with things. And usually when I went through my medical history with my patients, I'd see that they were on a lot of prescription medications, and that they had a lot of digestive issues, and they had a lot of other systemic issues. So that kind of started me being curious, about 20 years ago, onto there's more than this, than just aligning the spine, which has a great deal of benefit to begin with. But there's other things, lifestyle factors, and everything drove home when I happened to meet my beautiful wife. We got married, and she began having a lot of systemic issues that we started, going to see all kinds of disciplines, internists, endocrinologists, gastroenterologists, and she mostly suffered with a lot of recurrent infections, ear, nose, and throat, a lot of achiness, muscle spasms, joint pain. And everywhere we went, there was really no concrete answers and a definite diagnosis. It was just a lot of prescriptions for, anti-inflammatories, corticosteroid drugs, and, antibiotics for her recurrent infections. And nothing got resolved. So, since I am a little bit of a procrastinator, every year as a chiropractor, uh, uh, we need to have 16 hours of continuing education credits in order for you to renew your license, and we have to do that before our birth month. My birth month is July, so it was like June 27th, and I still hadn't taken 1 hour of my continuing education hours to renew my license. I was like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? So I started searching on the internet, see if there's an approved course out there that I could take before the weekend was over. Well, there was only one course in town that was 16 hours, exactly what I needed, that I could attend. There's nothing else other than that. And it was by this a practitioner. You may know him, Dr. David Brownstein. And the topic was prescription drugs that don't work and natural therapies that do. And I was like, oh, nutrition, oh, how boring. I don't have anything. I don't want to have anything to do with that. But it was the only continuing education hours that I could get. So I went. And I even took a stack of files to the seminar, so I could just do my work while catch up on some notes while I was there. Because back then, we didn't have electronic medical records or anything like that. It was we didn't even have internet back then, so it was just paper and pencil that you recorded your notes on. Well, I got there and I was glued to Dr. Brownstein. He started describing my wife to the T. Everything that she was suffering from, hair loss, chronic fatigue, brain fog, achy joints, recurrent infections. I mean, he was just describing her to the T. And I had a friend of mine that had been doing functional medicine for some time, and I said, what is this? What is he talking about? And my friend said, that's functional medicine. I said, well, what's functional medicine? He says, well, man, it's going to be the medicine of the future. And I'm talking about 20 years ago. So he said, bring your wife over to me, and I'll start guiding you into what could be wrong with her. Sure enough, first thing Monday morning, I was knocking on his door. I said, Darren, here's my wife, and this is all the things that she's going through, and these are all the places that we've been, and these are her, all her prescriptions. So he started running some advanced functional medicine testing, and within 2 weeks, he turned her around. It was a 180-degree turn, and I got so curious and so thirsty for that knowledge that I started taking all kinds of courses, and I traveled everywhere. Wherever there was a functional medicine seminar, I was there. And I did that for about 3 or 4 years, obtain as much knowledge as I could. And being now a practicing functional medicine and seeing patients, one of the reps from Transformation Enzyme Corporation visited me, and he introduced me to enzymes. Back then, I thought enzymes were just for digestion, and I used them for gastrointestinal issues. But when they visited me from Transformation, they opened up a new world. I mean, Dr. Dickey Fuller back then, she would have also conferences and little get-togethers at the office at Transformation, and I attended a couple. And one day, the rep came over and said, "Hey, Dr. Bastidas, Transformation is looking for practitioners to help them with some research studies. Would you like me to put your name in there?" And I'm like, well, I've never researched anything, and I'm just a chiropractor. He goes, no. Would you like me to put your name in there? I said, okay, well, yeah, go ahead. Well, I met with Suzanne and her manager of sales, and they kind of put on the table what it is they wanted, and I kind of got the gig, and I did a little observatory study on protease and its anti-inflammatory properties. And now, 15 years later, I'm here as Director of Research and Development for Transformation Enzyme Corporation. So that's my story.
Really like paperwork.
Yeah.
I can't imagine the paperwork with research. It's bad enough just for patient notes, but
oh my goodness, no! And doing research with in vivo with real live people, it's like herding cats. There's a lot to it, and but I have a tremendous, awesome team at Transformation, and they put everything, all the resources at my reach, so we can get these things done. And I've now performed, the inflammatory study. I performed a leaky gut study. We did a glyphosate pilot. And our most recent study was proteolytic enzymes and their impact on detoxification of endocrine disrupting chemicals. That was our latest research study that we did at the office.
perfect. It sounds like we have very similar paths. We were looking for more tools to help our patients and people and wives and selves, and that just brings a lot into it. So with protease, and we sat in your class, and I think there's a lot of interest in protease and the detoxification and how it affects cells that aren't supposed to be there, inflammation. Where would you like to start with that? Because you're the man.
Well, let's see. Let's start. Let's start at the basics. So, like I said earlier, in my early functional medicine experience, I would use enzymes, as for gastrointestinal issues. People that were having, indigestion or malabsorption. Because the exposure I got to enzymes at the medicine functional courses, it was very, mostly gastrointestinal. Being at transformation, that's where I started looking into the systemic benefits. So over and above just digestion, which, as we all know, we have metabolic enzymes, which our own body makes for our own endogenous, internal reactions, chemical reactions. Those type of enzymes we cannot supplement. I'm talking about like the aromatase enzyme that converts testosterone to estrogen in males. That aromatase enzyme, that's not, you don't supplement that. So there's metabolic enzymes that are produced by your own body. But in order for you to produce those metabolic enzymes, you need amino acids so that your cells have the building blocks to create those metabolic enzymes. So the metabolic enzymes are, indirectly very dependent upon our digestive enzymes to break up those building blocks. So to begin with, that's where you start obtaining the systemic benefit. The proteolytic enzymes, when used for digestion, break up the proteins necessary for amino acids to go and nourish the cell, and the cell grab those amino acids and create the metabolic enzymes that we have. So that's one way, the first way, that through digestion, those proteolytic enzymes are able to work. Over and above digestion, if you're not using them for digestion, and you take the proteolytic enzymes on an empty stomach, what they do is now they don't have anything in the gastrointestinal lumen to digest, so they go and they're transported into the circulation. And now being in the circulation, they impart their anti-inflammatory benefit, their mucolytic benefit, they increase blood rheology. They detoxify the blood. They also have anti-tumorigenic properties, anti-cancerogenic properties, and the list goes on and on. They're also antiviral, antiparasitic, antifungal. They increase your immune system. When your immune system is hypoactive, they're able to potentiate macrophage activity by 700%. They're also able to stimulate natural killer cell activity. When your immune system is hyperactive, they're able to quench and modulate the immune system and provide your immune system an aid so that aggressive inflammatory reaction is quenched. The beautiful thing about that is that proteolytic enzymes don't shut off your immune system like steroids do. And that's important because we need our immune system. Inflammation is natural. We need inflammation. It's just that the chronic, steady, prolonged, elevated inflammation starts becoming a foe instead of a friend. So with proteolytic enzymes, you're able to modulate and quench that immune reaction so that the end result to the patient is relief. Because when you decrease inflammation, you decrease pain as well. And the patient immediately starts to see relief when you dose them for, your autoimmune conditions, your cancer patients, and pain patients as well.
So let's hit on how protease is give us a real low level. And I use just as a personal note, I use protease on the empty stomach. I do it that way because when the family did its big trip to Ocracoke a couple of years ago, I actually fractured my neck body surfing.
Oh, wow.
I was using that and I didn't use anything else. And that controlled my pain. She actually used protease to recover from a surgery, and we love it. How can you make this so? I mean, we all understand advanced biochemistry. I'm not necessarily good at bringing it down to a level that everybody can understand. How does this work on inflammation, and how does it affect like cancer?
Okay, so like I said, inflammation is necessary. Inflammation is your immune system is stimulating pro-inflammatory proteins called cytokines. And these cytokines, there's a family of cytokines, and again, they're stimulated when there is need for inflammation, because inflammation is the body's way of dealing with injury, dealing with stress, dealing with when you exercise, you do an intense exercise regimen, you're actually breaking up some tissue. So inflammation ensues. Your immune system creates pro-inflammatory cytokines to rebuild, repair, and regenerate that tissue. So that's where inflammation is needed. So your immune system increases these pro-inflammatory cytokines, and they're named such as interleukin 1 beta, interleukin 6, TNF alpha. These are names of these pro-inflammatory cytokines. So when there's injury, when there's stress, uh, uh, when there's intruders like parasites, viruses, or fungal infection, these foreign intruders, your immune system sees them, and to attack them, they increase those pro-inflammatory cytokines. So these are proteins that your immune system makes in order to create an inflammatory response to get rid of or to deal with the injury or the pathogen that has just invaded our system. So that's what inflammation is. It's your immune system reacting and making pro-inflammatory proteins against that threat that it sees. How do these proteolytic enzymes function? Well, what they do is, first of all, since they are antimicrobial, since they work against the pathogens, whether it's a virus, whether it's a parasite or a fungus, these proteolytic enzymes have antimicrobial properties. So they actually go and start hydrolyzing or attacking the outer coat of these pathogens. So that's one way of dealing with that. If we're talking about infection, you're actually breaking up that outer coat, the exoskeleton, the outer wear of the pathogen. So that's one way. Another way is that, remember I said, when the immune system sees a pathogen, it creates all these inflammatory cytokines. Well, the proteolytic enzymes, as it's dealing with the threat, with the intruder, it also quenches down the immune reaction. So that TNF alpha, interleukin 1 beta, interleukin 6, interleukin 12, these pro-inflammatory cytokines, they are quenched. Okay, and they're brought down, they are hydrolyzed and brought down by the proteolytic enzymes, so that that immune reaction is more controlled, more modulated. If we don't have that, a lot of times, I'm going to give you an example. Let's say, we all, dealt with COVID, and, COVID brought about what they call a cytokine storm. And that's what they were referring to. The immune system saw the virus come in. It created all these pro-inflammatory cytokines that they call the cytokine storm. And that cytokine storm just overwhelmed the patient. Well, with these proteolytic enzymes, and there's literature, by the way, of how these proteolytic enzymes, and specifically bromelain, which I research a lot, is able to quench the immune reaction, the cytokine storm, and also is able to work against the spike protein itself. So that's one way when we have a foreign intruder. But when we have an injury, that these inflammatory cytokines also get upregulated, the bromelain or the proteolytic enzyme goes in and helps repair the tissue. It cleans up the necrotic tissue. It increases blood rheology. It increases circulation to the area. And when you're dealing with an injury, you need the circulation in that injury. Why? Because the circulation brings in oxygen, it brings in nutrients, it brings in water. Three things that your tissues need in order for them to heal. So at the same time, it's increasing that blood rheology, that circulation, and cleaning out the blood and delivering oxygen, nutrients, and water to the injured area. It's also quenching those pro-inflammatory cytokines and modulating the immune system so that you can have a more efficient repair and regeneration of that damaged tissue. So I hope I brought it down to layman's terms pretty much.
Well, that was a great job, because that I generally I explain it half right to my patients. Basically, I say it's a Pac-Man, but it's not only Pac-Man going in and eating out all the bad stuff, but it is also bringing along the repair crew behind him to fix everything.
Right.
And so I know that the type of enzymes that what makes your guys' enzymes different than what else is out there?
Okay, so enzymes is a general term given to all these proteins that hydrolyze or add a water molecule to a protein chain, an amino acid chain. And when you add a water molecule with a focused, energy-driven water molecule to a protein chain that is chained with a lot of bonds, chemical bonds, you break up that chain. So when you have a protein a molecule and you hydrolyze it, you start breaking it down to its amino acid components. Okay, so generally that's what a proteolytic enzyme does. Okay, and let's say proteolytic enzymes are like cars. Okay, you have a Toyota, you have a Honda, you have a Nissan. They are going to pretty much do the same thing, get you from point A to point B. Okay, and it's just your preference which one you want to use. Proteolytic enzymes are the same way. There's nattokinase that comes from fermented soy. There's bromelain that comes from pineapple. There's papain that comes from papaya. Okay. There's lumbrokinase that comes from worms. So these are different proteolytic enzymes that you can use, and they all pretty much have that anti-inflammatory benefit, that cleaning out the blood, detoxifying it. Why? Because they're all breaking down protein tissues, protein chains into their amino acid components. We at Transformation, we like to use plant-based and mycelial enzymes, which comes from fungus, the Aspergillus species. And we like to use the bromelain from pineapple and the papain from papaya. Why? There's a reason. These plant and mycelial enzymes are able to survive the gastric environment, okay, that acidic environment in the stomach. When an enzyme, a proteolytic enzyme, is sourced from an animal source, they really don't survive that acidic environment from the stomach. So what manufacturers have to do is they have to enterically coat that enzyme in a tablet. And Dr. Miller, what enteric coating does. It puts on chemicals that, if you're dealing with a patient with all kinds of issues, you don't want to throw in and aggravate that with a chemical. They usually use talc and dyes and things to help it survive the gastric environment, make it into the small intestine so they can then impart its benefit. Mycelial and plant-based enzymes don't need to be enterically coated. So that's the main reason why Transformation uses mycelial and plant-based enzymes, because they don't need to be enterically coated, and there's studies that have been performed to show that they're able to survive that acidic environment and retain their enzymatic activity all the way to the circulation.
So I have a question about the animal proteins, because basically, like, we're one of about 12 facilities in the United States that has what is called a Heidelberg machine. And this tests hydrochloric acid. And we usually see people that don't have any hydrochloric acid in it. When they swallow the pill with water, they never come back to acidic. And so they probably can't break that enteric coating down anyway, can they?
Yeah, if the enteric coating is there to protect the enzyme and for it to not to lose its activity. So yeah, you're right. Once if it makes it all the way into the small intestine, then it's just going to depend on the patient's own pancreatic enzymes to try to break up that enteric coating. But if we're having a patient, like I said, that's already having a lot of issues, especially gastrointestinal issues, then it's going to be hard for them to even break down that enteric coating to get that enzyme to come out and be absorbed. So they might even be, wasting that enzyme and their money at that point.
Yeah, we do a test with patients where we'll have them bring their vitamins in, and you can put insert name of cheap brand here in water, and they just don't break down. And if they're not going to break down in water, they're not going to break down in the digestive system. That's super well. If you're on PPIs, that stuff's not happening anyway.
Right.
So what do you have any questions for him? I'm hogging the screen.
I'll reach out to him personally.
And so for patients, and I want to kind of, apoptosis is programmed cell death.
Yes, sir.
And we want that to happen in patients. And what we are seeing and what you have seen is that protease helps that programmed cell death, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. When needed. And that's one of the interesting and one of the things that makes me so curious about these proteolytic enzymes. And like I said, I'm heavily into researching bromelain and papain and mycelial because that's, those are the main proteases that we use at transformation. And one of the most intriguing things about these proteolytic enzymes is that somehow, way, shape, or form, they know when the body needs for them to turn something on and when the body needs for them to quench something. So they're very adaptogenic-like. An adaptogen kind of regulates and balances out a chemical reaction in the body. They neither stimulate it too much or inhibit it so much. They kind of bring it down to nice homeostasis or balance. When we talk about apoptosis, there's mechanisms that turn on programmed cell death, and there's mechanisms that turn off programmed cell death. And when we're talking about cancer in specific, cancer is able to hijack that mechanism that turns on programmed cell death for its own survival. Well, these proteolytic enzymes, specifically bromelain, because I've researched a lot on bromelain, they go in there and they say, you're a tumor, you need to die. So it's able to turn on the signals that tell the cell to die. It's intriguing because there's times where a healthy cell doesn't need to die. It's still thriving. So autophagy is another term for a cell to die. But when we're talking about a healthy cell, bromelain actually tells by way of another signal, tells that cell that they don't need to die yet. So it's like it preserves healthy cells, but it then attacks tumors that don't want to die. So that's intriguing to me, and I still haven't gotten to the level of figuring out what is it that makes them decide yes this, no that.
I wonder if that has to do with insulin resistance, because sorry guys, I'm just going off on a little. The brain is we see so much cancer, and if you read the metabolic roots of cancer and stuff like that, insulin is a huge driver of that. I wonder if you paired like a ketogenic diet or intermittent fasting or all of that with like a high dose protease. I wonder what that would do to those things. Have you guys done any studies like that?
Not related to diet, but just the research I've been doing. Cancer loves sugar.
Oh yeah.
And when you have insulin resistance, when you have hyperlipidemia, when you have metabolic syndrome, hyperglycemia, when you have any of those conditions whereby your blood glucose is elevated,
Diabetes.
and you have cancer, that's fuel for that tumor, because it depends on. See, cancer is very bad at creating its own energy. It's awful. It doesn't do it as efficiently as a healthy cell. Okay, a healthy cell is able to create 36 molecules of ATP, which is the energy source of the cell. Well, a tumor, a cancerous cell, they're only able to produce 2 ATPs versus 36 ATPs that a healthy cell can. So cancer tumor, they're highly dependent upon blood glucose. And the more blood glucose, the more sugar that is in the circulation, that's what they use in order for the energy that they need, because they can't create their own energy as efficiently as a healthy cell.
So basically, cancer can only run the energy part of the equation, that is the citric acid cycle or the Krebs cycle. It can't run the electron transport chain that kicks out all, and go ahead, sorry.
I was just going to ask a question.
Floor's yours.
Well, because I'm sure that if I'm thinking it, other people are. What are you considering a high dose protease?
That's a great question. So one of the biggest things that people already have learned when taking something, whether it's a vitamin, a mineral, or a prescription medication, is that they have to dose by kilogram body weight. Okay, so like let's say for example, an analgesic. They recommend 220 milligrams, every 4 hours, or 500 milligrams, and they measure that by weight because there is accumulation that can happen, and with accumulation of any drug, vitamin, or mineral, if there's over accumulation, well, there's toxicity, right? So you can't dose a vitamin, a mineral, or a drug too high, because there is a threshold where you're going to affect your liver, your kidney, or you're going to have some type of reaction. Okay. The beautiful thing about enzymes is they're not measured by weight. They're measured by activity. They don't accumulate in your tissue. So right there, you take out the toxicity issue. So you can't overdose on enzymes. Okay. If you take too much, you might get diarrhea, okay, or discomfort, abdominal discomfort, but your body uses it for what it needs it, and either eliminates it or recycles it for some other use. But it doesn't get accumulated in your body, and it has about a 3 to 4 hour half-life, meaning that in about 3 or 4 hours, that activity has gone down to its half life, and you're no longer going to have an issue with having it around. Okay, so there's no toxicity issue. Having said that, you can take as much as you can tolerate. So what I do is, let's say for example, I have a patient that has inflammation, and I've done this several times in my own practice, because being a chiropractor, I see, sports related injuries, and, sometimes, they roll an ankle and they come in with an ankle, with as big as a watermelon. So what I do is I start them on 3 capsules of our TPP protease, which is our professional protocol formula at transformation. I start them off at 3 capsules 3 times a day for about 2 or 3 days. See if they can tolerate that. If they're able to tolerate that, no problem, no discomfort, not a worry. In about 2 days, I tell them to go up a capsule. So then it's 4 capsules 3 times a day for a couple of days. Then go up another capsule. So that's 5 capsules 3 times a day for a couple of days. Then 6 capsules 3 times a day. And I start pushing them up that way. If they're able to tolerate in one sitting, there's people that, they're very sensitive in terms of what they eat or what they take. Those sensitive individuals, I start them out with a low dose, like I just mentioned. But if there's someone that can eat rocks and don't have a reaction, they have a strong stomach, you, Dr. Miller,
Yeah.
they could go ahead and just start with 6, 8, or, I've even done 10 3 times a day, without an issue. And that's where systemically you start seeing that anti-inflammatory property. So those sports-related injuries, their recovery shortens significantly because when you control inflammation, you increase blood flow to the injury. You're bringing in oxygen, water, and nutrients to that injured site. You're bringing down inflammation. Recovery shortens. So and that holds true for any condition, whether it's pain, inflammation, autoimmune. The cancer studies that I've done. That's the way I've also done it. Start them off at about 3 or 4 capsules 3 times a day, and every couple of days start going up a capsule at each dose until they get to the mega dosing. But I always advise for patients to find a practitioner that is well versed in enzyme therapy, so that they can be supervised along their journey with whatever condition they're using it for.
Wonderful. And so we had Amy on actually last week, and she talked about the Thrive in 63. And so there we're starting to get into the gastro and the digest. And how do you manage? I know how we manage, and I think I know how you manage. I want to explain this to others. How do you manage those people who are chronically ill? Where do you start, and why do you start there?
Okay, so for the chronically ill, so we this was about 12, 13 years ago. I performed a leaky gut study, and that's where the Thrive kit came out of, the Thrive in 63 program. And we called it Thrive in 63 because it was a study with a number of participants that we chose who had abdominal issues, gastrointestinal issues, anything from reflux to abdominal distension to gas and bloating. We had autoimmune patients. We had pain, chronic infections, and just chronically ill patients, participants. And what we did was we had them take a protocol of a digestive enzyme, a proteolytic enzyme, and a probiotic. Okay, and we ran a battery of tests to see if they had any markers for inflammation, they had any markers for intestinal permeability. We did their body composition. So we ran a battery of tests, and we put all these participants in this program called the Thrive in 63. We did that for 63 days. And like I said, it's composed of enzymes and probiotics and an approved food list. So what we wanted to show was that by changing your lifestyle through healthy eating habits and eating natural, organic whole food and adding enzymes and probiotics, we wanted to show that we're able to turn these people around in terms of their chronic conditions. So we ran a battery of about 6-7 different tests, measuring, like I said, inflammation, intestinal permeability markers, antibodies to certain intestinal proteins, tissues. We did a comprehensive blood work. So that battery of tests, we did it in the beginning, before we started the program, and 63 days later. Okay, and we showed across the board that we were able to bring down a lot of their symptoms, a lot of their inflammatory markers, antibodies that they had against their own tissues, and we were able to improve that leaky gut condition. And like I said, we did it with these enzymes and these probiotics. It's a whole kit that we put together called Thrive in 63, and that's what I use in my practice when I have anyone coming in with any type of issue. Why? Because what we're doing at that point is that we're kind of resetting their metabolism. We are reintroducing what real food is. And, at Transformation, there's a philosophy, give the body what it needs and allow it to manage its resources. And that's pretty much what we did. We just fed real food, gave enzymes and probiotics, and let the body do its magic. And in 63 days, we were able to show that across the board, everyone improved, all of the markers improved, and these patients thrived in terms of their health and condition.
And we're seeing that in our clinic as well, because it is turning a lot of people around, and it's fabulous. I had a question, and then this dryer behind me kicked on, and I lost it. So as we just for giggles, I take at least 4 protease a day. How many are you taking a day?
As you are into your enzyme therapy and things are improving, you just go into a maintenance protocol. So you don't need those 10, capsules 3 times a day when your health is under control. Fortunately, I'm blessed with good health. At 55, I still CrossFit, and I've been an athlete all my life. Because of my wife's condition, she cooks at home a lot, and by cooking at home a lot, we're able to keep control of what we put in our mouths. And the only things that we shop for are whole, natural, organic foods. So with that lifestyle of eating healthy and exercising, I can just be on a maintenance dose of about 2 caps 3 times a day. And I got to be honest with you, I forget to take my enzymes at times. But like I said, when you have control over your health, you don't have to be that disciplined. But when you're dealing with a condition, that's when you have to be disciplined and keep at it, and your body will eventually turn around.
Well, we tell people that when you feel good, 80%, that's you hit that 80%, the body really likes it, you'll like it, and you'll know if you start to slip, because little aches and pains start to creep back in on you, and all you have to do is give the body a little help. I know what I was going to ask. Have you done any microbiome studies? Because of the way that it turns the digestive tract around, have you looked at like Akkermansia and how it affects Akkermansia or Roseburia or a Phacobacterium? Because, those are the keystone species that maintain the gut pretty much, what research shows.
In that leaky gut study, we did a stool test from Genova Diagnostics. We did the comprehensive stool test, and we were able to show dysbiosis improve. We were able to show those inflammatory markers in the stool come down. We were able to show increased pancreatic efficiency.
Yeah.
Exactly. So when you put a patient in a clean diet full of, low glycemic type of fruits and vegetables, you're getting all the fiber and you're getting all the plant-based nutrients that will nourish your friendly bacteria. And when you give them the enzymes, you're also quenching inflammation. You are strengthening your immune system. And when there's that type of environment in your system, everything starts to work better. With the proteolytic enzymes in those stool tests, we are also able to improve dysbiosis. And when you improve dysbiosis, everything starts working because the friendly guys start producing what they need to produce. You have more short chain fatty acids like butyrate, the cell currency of your colon. So your bowel movements improve. As your bowel movements improve, you're no longer constipated, you're no longer stagnant, and you're eliminating regularly. Because that's another thing. If you're not eliminating regularly, well, all that stuff gets backed up, your pipes get backed up, and those things recirculate. And those are toxins that are recirculating. So one of the biggest things about these proteolytic enzymes is that while they are able to defunct these pathogens, you're able to eliminate them. And nourishing the friendly bacteria with the increased fiber and phytonutrients, all that just creates an environment that is geared more towards health and wellness. So that's where the magic happens. So yes, we were able to see through that stool test improvement in friendly bacteria versus pathogens.
So, in your mind, and I think I already know the answer to this, but how, just for the people out there, how important is your diet?
Woo! It's the foundation. I mean, you can't beat a bad diet with an enzyme. Just like exercise. I mean, you can exercise all you want, but if your diet is bad, you're not going to gain. You're not going to make any gains.
And triathlon,
you
can't outrun a crappy diet.
Yeah,
Sorry to step on you there.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. You can't outrun a crappy diet, and the same thing with enzymes. I mean, you put bad stuff in your body, yeah, the enzymes are gonna break down bad stuff. So it's like it's the end result. What do you want to break down? Bad stuff, or you want to break down good stuff? Because the good stuff is what's going to give your cells the information that it needs to thrive. The bad stuff's going to give your cells bad information that will turn on bad genes and silence the good genes. And that's the end result of that is sickness and disease. When you turn on the good genes and silence the bad genes, the end result of that is a thriving, healthy individual.
Is there anything that you can think of that you would like to make sure you impart to people that I haven't asked you or we haven't touched on?
Pretty much is, use these enzymes for their strength, digestion, and systemic benefit. It's I've always said this: if I were stranded in an island and I could only take one supplement with me, it wouldn't be a vitamin, it wouldn't be a mineral, it would be enzymes. Because if you eat right, you're going to eat nutrient dense foods. Okay, when I say right, I'm talking about your what comes out of a tree, what comes out of the ground, and an animal you have to kill in order to eat. Just like our ancestors ate. How we were designed to eat. Our GI tract was designed to absorb nutrients, not chemicals. Okay, so anything that comes out of a tree, out of the ground, and a wild animal, you have to kill to eat. As long as you're eating that, you're going to eat nutrient dense foods. Now, when you have the enzymes in it, you're going to be able to digest all those nutrients and absorb them more efficiently. So if you already have that, there's no need for you to load up on vitamins and minerals. they are needed at a certain point. But ultimately, if you have good nutrition and you have an enzyme to be able to break down that good nutrition to absorb them, that's what your cells ultimately need. So if I could, if you can understand that concept.
Yeah. Well, I was kind of laughing because I was like, man, if you were on a deserted island, your food's going to be nutrient dense because it's not going to have any crap in it.
Yeah, of course.
I always harp on, I should say, we always harp on, people don't realize how bad the American food system is.
Oh, yeah.
I love my people that go. I just had one today. She went on not a retreat. She did a church group, and she went to El Salvador or someplace, and she was like, "That's the best I have felt in forever." And
Oh,
I
yeah.
was like, "Well, yeah, because guess what? You didn't have a cell phone that worked. You didn't have your devices interrupting you. You probably went to sleep with the sun. You woke up with the sun. You ate really good food, and you probably walked everywhere, didn't
That's
you?"
right. That's right.
Yeah. And she was
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, I did." And I was like, "You don't have to do any of that in
Yeah.
America. It's a
Yeah,
double-edged sword."
it's not just the diet, it's also like you said, our appliances, our cell phones, that electromagnetic field that we're in, all the chemicals that surround us. We're inundated by chemicals, these xenobiotics, and that's what our latest research was over, how these enzymes impacted those endocrine disrupting chemicals, because these chemicals, they're absorbed via our skin, with what we put on, like our deodorant, our shampoo, our soap, the things we wash our clothes with. They're inhaled by the air we breathe. They're ingested by our water and our food that are all inundated with chemicals. And a lot of these chemicals go in, and they're called endocrine disrupting chemicals, because what they do is they mimic hormones. So instead of a hormone latching onto a receptor of the cell, it's the chemical latching onto the receptor of the cell. And it's going to make the cell do something that is abnormal. So, it's not just our diet, it's also our lifestyle, and like you said, the cell phone and, everything that we use, and, we're in front of a screen most all day, So all those things also play a huge role in our wellness.
Amy said something last week that really kind of stumped me and gave me an aha moment. And if you could elucidate it for me a little bit, let's let the Harley gang get bumping. She said that enzymes don't recognize GMOs. How that floored me. Can you expound on that?
Yeah, so I'm going to give you an example, this you can find on Cyrex Labs. This is one of the labs that we use for intestinal permeability markers, and they give an illustration as, I'm going to give you an example as food colorings, and how food colorings are able to bring about autoimmune. And the way they do that is, if you have a protein, amino acid chain, a protein. And you're eating something with a food coloring, those food colorings are able to bond with that protein chain. And when they bond to that protein chain, now the enzyme is not able to clip that protein chain, because the coloring has bonded and it's inhibiting the Pac-Man, if you will, the cutting of that protein
Chain.
So now what you have is a neoantigen, a new molecule. Okay, it's not a food or anything, or a nutrient. So your immune system then sees that protein chain, that amino acid chain, that protein with the food coloring on it, and it doesn't recognize it as a nutrient. So it says, this isn't a vitamin, it's not a mineral, it's not an amino acid, it's not a lipid, it's an intruder. And your immune system now tags that intruder as as an enemy, and it creates antibodies against that intruder. Okay, if that protein chain, if that amino acid chain has an amino acid sequence that is similar to your own tissue, let's say your thyroid,
Molecular.
it has the same amino acid sequence, your immune system now created antibodies against that particular amino acid sequence. And if it's the same amino acid sequence in your thyroid, then that antibody is also going to latch not only to that neoantigen, but also to your own tissue. Now you're setting yourself up for an autoimmune condition. Okay. So, and the kind holds true for GMOs. GMOs, you know, they're genetically modified organisms. So they don't have the same molecular structure as a nutrient, as a food. It's a foreign particle. So your immune system is going to see it the same way. And it's going to attack it as, you know, an intruder because it doesn't recognize it as a nutrient. And enzymes also have a very hard trouble in getting past that modified structure to be able to break it down.
So it works similar to molecular mimicry. Like gluten looks like the thyroid, and that's why it triggers so much autoimmune thyroid, Hashimoto's. It'll do the same thing with a GMO because it just doesn't know what the heck it is.
Right.
Well, we have taken up 56 minutes of your time. I'm going to, if you have anything else to add, now's the time.
No, just, thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun. I hope your listeners are able to, learn a little something in this hour that we had together. Feel free to reach out if you have any more questions.
And Dr. Bastidas, Dr. B, works for Transformation Enzymes. If you go to transformationenzymes.com, on the product page, you can see you can see the protease and that stuff. If you go there, they were nice enough to give our patients a 10% discount. You can type in, and I'm going to put it into the chat right now. You can type in that coupon code, Dr. Miller, and that will give you 10% off on your order if you want to try this. One of the things that we do tell people is if you're going to try protease, you're going to try gastro, you're going to try digest, or any of the proteolytics, typically it takes 90 days to change red blood cells. We ask you, if you're going to try these things by themselves and on your own, you have to give it 90 days. If you want help, reach out to us. You can reach out to Transformation. They can help you with that stuff too. There's a Facebook group that Amy has on the Thrive in 63. We're here to help you. And so anybody that wants or needs help can reach out. You're welcome to use that code. If you're not and you have questions, rewatch this. Dr. B talks about a lot of the things that we do. I wouldn't do the high dose stuff on yourself because you don't have experience with that. But the other stuff, if you've got aches and pains, arthritic type stuff, that protease is fabulous for that. And you don't need practitioners to do that.
Well, I would say start with the Thrive in 63.
Absolutely.
If you have no idea what to do, start there. I think it's fabulous. I think you all will think it's fabulous. Our patients love it. It actually has changed my life. It's changed our patients' lives, and it will change yours.
Awesome. Happy to hear that.
So I'll put that in the chat. Oh, hello, Val. So there that is. And like I said, we're here. Thank you so much, Dr. B. I know you're highly sought after, and thank you for your hour. We do appreciate it. And anything that we can do, we love going to the seminars and being there. We learn so much. With that being said, everybody, thank you all for tuning in. I'll have this uploaded on YouTube here in the next 24 to 48 hours. You can watch it again, and you're welcome to comment and ask questions. We'll get to them as quickly as we can. Thank you all.
Thank you.
that ended the stream.